Good morning, everybody. Happy Sunday. I hope you have your cup of coffee and you're ready to chat. It has been a busy week this week for me. Oh my goodness, I can't believe it's Sunday already. So lots of stuff happening on my farm, some really exciting things for my family, busy stuff with geckos, and just it snowed. It's just been like crazy week, and I'm tired today. I don't know how everyone else feels, but I hope you all had a great week. Um, Super excited to see you guys again. We're going to go over just a few questions people had from my last Caffeine and Crusty's chat, and then go over just a couple of other random fun things, and then we'll choose another topic for next week, which I think will be fun. I hope you all have your coffee and you're ready to chat. So one of the questions, if you haven't watched last week's video, we just kind of did an overview of business, kind of like 101, just like thinking through like building your business in this community. And really a lot of those principles can go along with really any business that you're starting or want to start. And it was very just bare bones, and I got a few questions after that video of some things people wanted me to dive into a little bit deeper, so I will do that today. And then just a couple of other quick announcements. I am telling you this on camera to hold myself accountable because I've been putting it off for a few weeks now, but this coming week, at some point, probably sooner than later, so I can just get it over with, because it needs to happen, I am going to film a video and upload it onto YouTube talking through a history of our journey on our soft skill research and like the full truth about all the drama and where we landed, and just kind of like the nitty gritty of it all, because there's a lot of people that don't really know the true ins and outs of what we've been going through, but also are even more confused now based off of the fact that other people, anyways, that's all I'll say for now. It's fine, it's not dramatic, it's just my and Dan's story, and I'm saying this out loud so that I don't talk myself out of it again. I just don't want the drama. I don't want any of it, and that's what makes me fearful of putting that information out again, because it's an open door for people to do what they've done before to me. And so I hopefully in that video it will be very clear that that's not my intention, and I will get that done. So stay tuned for that this week. Trying to think if there's anything else. I think that's it. I had some requests from people for me to bring animals onto my video. It's 4:30 this morning, but I'm going to next weekend. I promise. I'm going to bring some cool stuff just to show you, and that aligns with whatever topic we pick. So that will be fun. I just this morning rolled out of bed and was like, oh my gosh, I have to get this video done. I need to chat with my people. So anyways, moving on. So let's talk back to where we were last week. Business 101, creating your business, your brand in the hobby. And a lot of you had some really good questions. Some of them I might save for another topic, but there were some good things just kind of talking through some of the things I had brought up for you guys last weekend. And I want to give you the tools I use so that you can carry those out going forward for those questions. So the first question I want to talk through, and I think this is a great question, and it's kind of it's a harder topic, I guess, that I don't really know if I've ever talked to anybody about it truly. So it'll be good to kind of go through. This first question was, how do you pick the best stock and holdbacks from what you have when you allow yourself, and you're a lot like me, and you get attached to everything and you can see something good in every single offspring? I think that is a huge struggle for a lot of people who love the animals and who are passionate about this hobby, especially breeders who are just getting into the hobby and producing their first babies. You see those little babies and you're like, I can't get rid of anything. And over time, that mentality gets you way too many geckos in your collection, and it gets stressful. It's hard to let things go. The bigger something gets, the harder it is to let it go, because it becomes more valuable to you as it grows. And what I mean by that is, if you have this 10-gram animal and you sell it or you rehome it, and you pick your price and you move on, that's fine. But when you allow that 10-gram animal to get closer to 30 grams in your collection, every time you look at it, you see it as an opportunity to put back into your projects. And so it is harder to let go of things that you grow out for longer. And I think there's a lot of different mindsets when it comes to like holding things back. And I had this conversation with my good friend Kevin from Fireside Geckos, because I'm notorious for holding things back for a long period of time. And I kind of had I wouldn't say like a realization this end of this last season as to like how hard it is for me to let animals go. And I struggle with it a lot. But he reminded me that every time I hold a female back to see how she develops, or I hold a group of animals back to see how they develop before I sell them, that the opportunity of utilizing them in my projects will always outweigh the opportunity of me selling them, because of how passionate I am and how much I love my animals. And that hit me hard, because it was so true. What Kevin said, I was like, oh my goodness, you're so right. The moment I let these animals get big enough for me to see their breeding potential, it is incredibly challenging to let them go. Excuse me. And I did that for a reason. We had a lot of research going on, and so it wasn't just arbitrarily holding things back, but that made a lot of sense to me. And with that being said, I've changed my mindset a little bit this year to not allowing myself to hold everything back to see where it's at, or to get the higher price for it as it's bigger. And I think that ultimately is a bit better method for not letting yourself get completely overcrowded. But with that being said, when I first started out my business, I mean, I held everything back for almost 2 years, and now I have a largely vast collection of really nice animals that I produced that are leading my breeding projects. So that in itself was a huge thing for me. I invested a lot of money initially and then held everything back, and that initial investment got me what I needed to get to where I am without having to be continually investing all the time in new geckos, which, not to say that's not important. You need to continue to invest in good stock, but there are different reasons why you would hold back more animals or keep them until you can see their breeding potential. So keep that in mind with what your goals are as you're picking through your stock. I mean, if you're trying to build your collection and you need to hold back a multitude of nice animals, or your nicest animals, to build your collection, then be mindful when you're doing that as to what your goals are. If you're just growing them out to be able to sell them for more, or to see how they look, it takes a couple of seasons and then you get an eye for something. And I think that's important. For example, for me, I didn't really realize when I first started how late in life the red animals start to show their colors. So most of my nicest red animals don't even really show their reds until about 20 grams. And I'm thankful that I learned that, not necessarily the hard way, because I almost sold a lot of nice geckos before their potential. But now I know what geckos I need to hold back till that 20, 25 gram range to really see what they're capable of. It doesn't hold that same weight for a dark-based animal. A dark-based animal, they show pretty dang quickly that they're going to be a dark-based animal. Same with yellows. I find that yellows are very obvious from the start for me personally. So darks, yellows, lavender is just a harder thing to see, but at the same time, it's more noticeable early on. Sometimes lavenders turn into reds, and that's kind of, they start off looking like lavender or like a grayish dark base, and then that 20 gram range, just like, holy moly, that gecko is so red. So I'm trying to think what else for me I work into being, but most everything else you can see pretty early on. I would say around like 10 grams you start to see kind of most of their potential in that way. There's animals that will blow your minds later on. Like, I know a lot of the animals for me that have these crazy like orange heads and things like that does come later in life. So you just have to like watch as you produce things to see what you want to keep back, to see the potential. For me, I keep everything back until at least 10 to 15 grams, because hatchlings, I mean, you just really 3, 4, 5 gram babies, they're not showing you any potential outside of just being a really nice hatchling. So I would recommend holding things back till at least 10 to 15 grams. The other benefit in that is to be able to sex the animals, or at least give a really good, strong idea. I don't really sell any animals that are unsexed, or at least there isn't some kind of, I haven't looked at it a few times to give an idea for people. With that being said, for me, when I go through my babies, it is pretty strategic formula that I use to decide on holdbacks. And the way that I do it, which isn't for everybody, but I'll offer that up for you guys as you're kind of weeding through some of the things I just said. I take the whole season. So for example, this is 2024. I don't have a ton of things hatching yet, but as they hatch, everything from 2024 will stay in my collection until next year. So I'll give it at least, depending, I mean, some animals will be born April, some animals will be born December. So I have this like long timeline of animals hatching all year long, and none of them will even be considered to get rid of or hold back or anything until 2025. So all of my stock this year that I'm selling or weeding through as holdbacks is all from 2023 pairings, all babies that hatched out in 2023. It works really well for me to do it that way, because I don't have to pressure myself to get through things more quickly than I'd like to. And it also holds me accountable to, methodically thinking through what I'm doing. So for example, as all the fun things hatch out this year in 2024, I don't have any thoughts or intentions or brain energy spent on who's staying or going from this year's hatchlings until 2025 hits. And that's when I'll pick that. So right now I'm weeding through 2023 offspring, and they're all, in different size ranges. So I usually start with those that are older, and I start to look through those first, and then as I start to pick those holdbacks, then the younger ones come into play. So for example, I have to have everything sexed, because I don't want to hold back too many of the same thing. If I don't need males, I don't need females. I won't know that until I kind of hold off to see what is what. And I've learned for myself, I have a hard time saying like, oh, I can only keep one baby from this pairing. It is a little bit more organic like that, where I say, okay, I'm going to pick the 2 nicest males, the 2 nicest females, in my opinion. The rest of them, they'll get listed first. Then as a couple months go on, you see the animals kind of continue to progress. I'm like, okay, I don't need 2 males from this pairing. Or maybe you do. Maybe this is a male that's going to be retiring soon, or maybe it's a male that you plan to sell, or that's not necessarily, there's reason to hold back 1 or 2 of the male offspring. And then in that case, you may say, I need 2 solid males from this project to continue this. And that way you picked your 2 best males and you're moving on from there. I highly suggest considering not allowing yourself to hold back more than 2 of the same sex baby from one single pairing. Basically just to keep yourself safe from having everything in your collection related, or not having the ability to outcross within your own collection. That can be kind of annoying when you get to a point where you're like, oh, I have all these really nice animals, but they all come from the same 3 geckos. And that's when you have to bring in new bloodlines and things like that, by holding yourself accountable not to hold back too many from a single pairing. That can help a little bit with keeping you able to outcross within your own collection. So you get to that point where you're like, okay, I've got the 2 best males, 2 best females, and now I kind of got to weed through that. You have options to think through, and the rest of the babies or the rest of the offspring has already been on your for sale rack, and you're working through that, and the other ones can just sit there until you get to that point where you need to figure it out. And by the time I get to that point, typically they're like 25, 30 grams, and now I can tell for real which ones I want to keep. And it makes it a lot easier to do it that way than try and overwhelm yourself with having to just pick one animal from all of those offspring at once, because it is fun to watch them grow. That's the, in my opinion, the most fun part, is to see animals progress. And the method I use helps me to be able to do that without being overrun with way too many animals. And it gives me the ability too, when someone buys an animal from me, to have some examples of siblings, and I'm constantly sending people pictures of siblings so that they can just see what that pairing is producing. And by allowing yourself to have a couple a little bit longer, you have the ability to do more of those things as well. And that works really well for me. And then at the end of the day, typically I only hold back one male if I need it. There's some times that I'm just like, you know what, I'm going to be breeding this dad for at least another 2 or 3 seasons because he produces gold. And I have a couple males like that. And I'm like, these males are really nice, but if they're not any nicer than him, I may consider moving them on until I'm ready to, get rid of the dad. I always hold back males with this thought of like, are you nice enough to replace your dad down the road? Maybe next year, or maybe in 2 years, maybe in 5 years, but always only hold back males if they're potentially going to replace their dad with quality, and otherwise there's just no point to keep them. People need nice males all the time, and so I was a hoarder, and I would keep all the males, and then I'm like, oh my goodness, like I don't, they're all nice. I don't need them all though. So just because it's nice doesn't mean you need it. And that was a hard realization for me, was that I'm like, oh my gosh, everything's so nice, and I see potential in every single one of these animals. They could all replace their dad. You can justify all of these different reasons as to why to hold everything back. And I think that is just part of being passionate about your animals and seeing the good in everything. But I will say that in doing that, it did help train my eye for looking at other animals that I might bring into my collection and deciding whether or not they were quality enough to bring in. So one thing I'll go over really quick just to add on to that specific thought is, what makes a baby nice enough to hold back? And that's different for everybody. I think that it depends on what your projects are, what your goals are. It's not cut and dry as far as how I pick my holdbacks. There's a lot more that goes into it, and it's different for everybody. So one thing I think that is helpful when you're kind of choosing your offspring is having a plan. I map everything out. I am a very systematic person, and I have systems for everything. And I've thought about, which I think might be kind of cool, I have a lot of different documents that I've made myself for record keeping and goal setting and all the things, and I'm thinking about maybe sharing those with you guys, so you guys could just like download them and use them yourself if you wanted to. So if that's something you're interested in, let me know in the comments. But I'm a very systemized person, and I've always been like that. I'm surprised I never went into the military, because I thrive in the system driven world. And I think being a business owner, I've just evolved into operating that way, and not to the point where like I lose the passion or anything like that, but I like to be organized. And when I'm picking offspring or holdbacks, I know exactly what projects they're going into and why, and that helps weed things out and have intention behind holding back your best offspring. So for example, I just went through this exercise last week with my red spot project, because it totally just blew up this last season. Oh my goodness, I got so many amazing red spot babies, way more than I had anticipated. It was one of the projects that just outproduced and produced far beyond my expectations and my imagination. And so I've done exactly what I just told you of how I go through, and I've started to weed out animals, and it's exactly what I said. So I started by looking through and saying, okay, I want to keep the 2 best males, 2 best females, and some of the pairings I kept 3 females, because I was just like, holy moly, these are such nice animals, and I can always sell females. It's way easier to sell females for the most part in certain situations, especially once they get bigger. And so there's a few of the pairings that I held back 3 females. And that was probably 2 months ago or so when I did my very first online listing is when I went through that first cut. And then that left me with probably like 30 or so red spot project babies. And this last week, I had to go through and weed everything out again. And this was hard because they're all nice. They are all, in my opinion, like worthy of holding back and putting back into my breeding projects. And I know in my heart that I can't. So it's a tough job. It's not easy, but what I did is I literally laid out all of my males in one pile and all of my females in one pile. And I started with the males and I went through one by one and compared siblings to each other for all of the things, like starting with structure. Structure wins out pretty easily in my holdback collection. If an animal is showing better structure than its sibling and there isn't some other glaring reason why I need to hold that animal back, structure always wins. So nice wide head, depending on the more for the traits, genetics, nice wide dorsal, fat chunky belly, not a long snout and sunky eyes, which I don't really produce anything like that. I did initially in my first season and I was like, oh, I can't. So I've kind of pushed all of that out of my collection. So for the most part, everything has nice structure. And I'll talk about structure a little bit more here in a minute when we talk about picking geckos from other people for your collection. But so structure always wins for me. And if there's a reason I can sacrifice structure, it better be darn good when I'm choosing what to hold back. For example, if there's an animal, like let's say we're comparing 2 red spot males and one red spot male is completely covered in red spots head to toe. The other male has red spots and black spots and white spots and a little bit less quality structure. I'm looking at those animals for what is their goal in the future. So if I'm trying to take this male and produce more red spot babies where I want more red spots, and that's what I need to further this project, then even though this other male who's nice and has a ton of other spots doesn't necessarily fit in with my goals. And I think a lot of times we justify keeping them and being like, oh, well, I'll start a new project and we'll do red base with all the colored spots and I can keep him too. And I am so guilty of that. And I'm telling you, if you can be more mindful, it will save you from being overrun by your own collection. And really like strategic about how you keep things back. Now, there's nothing wrong with starting a new project. I think that's great, especially if you're building up your collection. And if you need to start a new project, then that's when you would say, okay, well, I've got these 2 really nice males. One's going to stay in the red spots. One's going to take me this direction and start a new project. And so now I need to focus on finding females that will map out with that. So it's kind of just figuring out where you're at in your journey and how that works for you. If I have 2 really nice red spot males, one has just slightly better structure than the other, but they're pretty comparable spot wise, or even the one with the structure has a few less spots. For me, structure goes far and beyond everything else. So structure stays, other animal goes, and we'll make a really great probably cornerstone male in somebody else's collection. And that's how I do it. And I think it works really well. And I'm still learning every single day. And as I grow more and learn more ideas, I'm going to offer them to you guys just so you can kind of have the ability to make those decisions for yourself. When it comes to females, it's a little bit different because females, you can move those into other projects more easily. And, you know, when you're going through females, it is more justifiable to hold more back than males just based off of the fact that you can use more females than you can males. But same thing goes is that the more females you hold back, the more future babies you have, and what are your goals? And for me, initially was quantity and quality because I needed to build my collection. I needed to have I think I purchased, I did a big investment on breeders initially, and then I realized like, oh, I really like what I'm producing more than the breeders that I have. And so I held a lot back. And in that case, it was more or less, okay, I can sacrifice holding back a few more females because I want to get to a point where I have a larger collection to work with. And now that my collection is rather large, I have to be really mindful because I don't want the quantity of my animals to grow any more than where I'm at. That means that for me, I have a set amount of cages for females, and I can hold back animals, but as soon as they're to the point where they need to be moved into an enclosure they can breed into, something has to go. I don't just keep adding more and more female cages. And my friend Dan from Gecko Harmony, we've talked about this quite a few times because over the last few years, it's hard to hold yourself accountable to not holding back way more females than you need. And so last year, I'm like, we need to just have a specific amount of female cages, and that's just that. So you have to move one out as you move one in. And that's worked well for me and kept me from having this just way too many females, because I don't need to have the quantity of animals. That's not my specific goal for my collection. It's quality. And you can have a small collection and the best quality animals. You don't need to have a massive collection to have quality animals. It just means that you have to be more strategic as you pick through what you want to keep or what you want to buy to put into your collection. So with that in mind, depending on your goals, if you want to breed for quantity, then maybe it makes sense for you to hold back a bunch of females. If you aren't in that boat and you want to be more strategic and you're gonna keep a smaller collection and focus more on quality or more specific niche, I don't know how people say that, I say niche, but if you are gonna have a more specific niche and you are gonna be more kind of focused on that and less quantity, then you probably can't allow yourself to hold back 3 females from your pairings. Even if you may not even get 3 females. That's a lot of females for one pairing, but it happens. And you could get more females too. I feel I have like some female makers. Some of my boys, like, I get so many more females out of them, which makes them even more valuable to me. But yeah, so that's kind of how I weed through. And talking through structure, like I had said, just making sure that that is part of your goals. I think that's just the right thing to do when we're breeding for better bloodlines, is to look at those qualities when you're picking and holding back certain animals. And then moving into a part of another question that I got was, when you're picking stock from somebody else, or you're starting to build your collection and you're in that initial investment phase, or even 5 years in and trying to figure out, how do I invest in a nice quality animal? For me, it is the same principles as how I hold back my animals, is to how I decide to bring something new in. And I was so guilty of just buying up all the animals from all the good breeders that I possibly could without even thinking about all of the other parts to the puzzle. I bought animals before I even had projects lined up for them. I bought animals because I thought they were pretty, and those are the type of animals that were selling. And I'm just, I just bought as much as I could of nice stuff. I was so excited to get breeding stock that I started out with far less of a game plan than I have now, and that happened. So if you're in the same boat and you just bought a bunch of stuff that you thought was really nice and that you liked, and maybe now you're like, oh, my goals are changing, my eye for geckos is different. There's nothing wrong with that. We all start in a place of seeing nice animals and buying before we have a plan, and you have to go through that to appreciate being able to be more strategic and more picky. And now I would say, for me, I am very, very, very picky now on what I purchase to bring into my collection. And I've been able to do that because I've built my collection to a point where I don't really need any more animals. But it's good to bring fresh blood into your collections often. And for me, I think last year I only bought, maybe like 1 or 2 crested geckos. Maybe this year, I've invested in a couple specifically for getting more outcrossing going in specific projects, but I'm not searching to buy geckos all the time. I am not in that season of my projects where I'm collecting geckos. So I go out searching for something specific now if I need it, which I feel like is a fun place to be in, because if you're in that season of just kind of buying animals, it is really hard not to be impulsive. Like, I struggled with that a lot, because you see an animal, you feel like you need it right now, and you buy it and you bring it in, and it's very exciting. It's almost like this adrenaline rush. You're getting new geckos all the time, and you're looking for geckos all the time, and it's fun. And eventually, like, you can't stay in that forever, because it's just not realistic. And I think that if you can have a solid mindset going into it, regardless of what season you're in, to allow yourself to be picky. I mean, you are building your collection and your projects, and there's no reason to freak out. I mean, yeah, there are some geckos that fly really quickly. You know, it's listed and it's gone, and that's something you have to pay attention to. And I did a lot. I mean, I remember 5 years ago, I was trying to get red spots, and it was like every time a red spot came available, it was gone within like 5 seconds. So I was psychotic trying to find red spots, and the moment I saw one, I bought it. And it was just it just kind of depends, and there's nothing wrong with that. But allow yourself to be picky, allow yourself to plan a little bit more, and to give yourself the ability to say, like, do I really need this animal? Like, what is this animal going to provide for me? Now, when you have a business or a collection that is serving a purpose and you're breeding these animals, like, you need to be able to tell yourself what the point is of that animal coming into your program. If you don't have like a specific reason or a specific need for that animal to come on board to your collection, then you probably should reconsider whether or not that animal makes sense to add on. And it's hard to be real with yourself. It's like basically like slapping yourself on the wrist every time you make a decision or think through something. Is like, wait, okay, let's go back. What's the intention here? Do I need this for a project? If I do, where is it going to fit in? How is it going to fit in? How is it going to benefit my current collection? And how is it going to produce something that I would see as better than what I already have? And if you can't answer those questions, then you probably need to pass on that gecko or give yourself more time to decide. There's nothing wrong with that. I have people message me all the time asking questions about animals, and they end up deciding not to get it. And for me, yeah, I don't mind answering people's questions. I think questions are good. I think giving yourself the ability to kind of work through the questions I stated, it's a good practice. So yeah, you also have those people that just ask you questions for no reason, and you're just like, oh my goodness, I don't have time for this. But for the most part, questions are really good. So ask them and make sure that you get your questions answered before you invest in that animal. I think right now there's a big hype with some of the auctions that are happening on Morph Market, and the market feeling like it's a little bit in a downturn where people are just buying up a bunch of animals. And so I have to be really mindful about watching what customers are doing too, because it's really hard to compete with lower priced animals, and it's hard to compete with this kind of like impulse, like auction idea, when people see an animal they could maybe get for $150 that they would see as the same quality as an animal they can buy on your page for $400. It's a hard place to be in, to kind of keep yourself from allowing yourself to basically downgrade your prices, or just it's a different place to be in as a breeder and a seller. And so you have to decide how you want to plant yourself into that part of it, which we kind of talked about a little bit in our last video, of just kind of the market a little bit there. One other thing I would caution you all on, and this was a mistake that I made. I wouldn't say mistake. I wouldn't even have known that this was a possibility without having gone through this. And I think that I can offer that wisdom to you, but there is a lot of hype about buying proven females or ready to breed females. And I bought a lot of them when I first started into building my collection. And I had 3 different instances where I didn't ask enough questions. I bought a high dollar female that was proven, beautiful, like just amazing animal, and got her into my collection, and she was done laying. Not even a dud, nothing. And I had that happen to me 3 different times, you guys, where I bought these proven females and I didn't ask questions like, can I see their babies from last season? How did they produce last year? And where are they at? Like, how old are they? You know, these questions that I should have asked, but I just saw this like, oh my gosh, this is a beautiful animal. Spend $4,000 on this proven female, get her into my collection, and realize she's absolutely worthless to my collection as far as like a breeder goes. Now, she's beautiful, and I'm not downplaying that, but I just spent $4,000 on an animal that's not going to produce a single baby because I didn't ask enough questions. I didn't do my research on that animal. I didn't get to a place where like I knew exactly what I was getting. And then I can't blame the breeder for that. If they didn't want to tell me that she was done laying, I mean, I don't think it's ethical. But at the same time, if I wasn't asking those questions, like maybe they didn't think I cared and it wasn't a big deal. And I've put myself in that position multiple times where I'm like, oh my goodness, I've had the same thing happen with proven males. Come to find out later, they're ridiculously aggressive and awful to females, and it's likely maybe why the breeders were letting them go. And so I think it's important to ask the questions initially when you're getting into animals. Do I think it's safer to buy younger animals? I do. It's not as gratifying because you can't put them to work as quickly, but I do think it's a bit safer while investing your money because there's less possibilities of the things that can happen. I mean, stuff happens all the time, and I know there's times when people don't have any idea that the gecko might not be done laying, but at the same time, like, just ask questions. Just be that annoying person because it's important that you're getting exactly what you want out of that animal. And I think that's very, very important. I've already made it to 37 minutes, you guys. Wow. I like to talk, I think. So I think that was probably like the main questions I got regarding specific business stuff. Was kind of initial investments, picking holdbacks, that type of a thing. I had some questions on like diet and picking breeding pairs, and some of those things I can go over probably on another day. And I would love to hear, I feel like I was just like talking today, like I just kept going and going and going. Maybe because it's early, but maybe because I like to talk. But I need to come up with some ideas for topics in the coming weeks. So if you wouldn't mind commenting on this video or sending me a private message on a topic you would like me to cover. I'm not an expert on anything. I can just offer my wisdom and what I've been through to hopefully enlighten you and give you guys options and empower you. I'm still technically a new breeder in my opinion, and I'm growing and learning every single day, and I want to grow and learn with you guys. That's really important to me. With that being said, I ordered the mugs that I wanted, and I didn't know, I'm not very tech savvy, so I don't know how to like insert a picture here that pops up. I'm going to learn. I'm going to be more tech savvy going forward. I'm going to figure it out. But I don't have pictures of the mugs. I'm just going to buy them in and physically show them to you. They're so cute. I'm so excited to give some of them away. And I will be doing that giveaway at the end of this month for some merch and maybe a gecko. I don't know. We'll see. I'll be giving something away though. That's exciting. And also, if you have any like ideas of who you would want to like have coffee and chat with us breeder wise, go ahead and just comment that as well. If you're like, oh, I would love to see this person on with you, Nicoletta, you talk about them a lot or whatever, let me know. This is all new and I'm learning, and like, I'm not even kidding you guys. I didn't even look in the mirror this morning. I rolled out of bed, I came upstairs to my loft and barely got myself a cup of coffee. So this is it. This is the real raw me. So I hope you guys appreciate that. Maybe some days I'll give more effort than others, but I love hanging out with you guys. I'm so thankful that you're watching these videos and I want you to get something out of it. So please give me feedback, questions, comments, all the things, and I will continue doing my best to bring you new insights each week and different fun giveaways and things like that. This week I will be on to share my soft scale research journey with you, so stay tuned for that. And I hope you guys have an awesome Sunday. And if you have any questions about anything I said today, do not hesitate to reach out to me. I would love to talk to you more specifically based off of what you need in the season that you're in. And I hope you all have an awesome day. Love you all. Thank you so much for being amazing, loyal followers, and I appreciate you more than you ever know. Have an awesome day, guys.